Welcome to today's episode of What to Say and How to Say It, the podcast to help you fix your marriage. I'm Shai Lewis. I'm here with Nina Roesner. Our mission is to help you, Christian married man or woman, navigate conflict and build connection so you can have a thriving marriage. And today we are discussing 5 ways to boost the respect in your wife talk. So we're talking to the ladies today. 3 of those things are going to be things you can stop doing. And then we have 2 things you can start doing. And yeah, we hope that it helps you today. And we hope that your wife talk improves after today's episode. So welcome, Nina. I'm excited to talk to you about this today.
I am jazzed about it too. I was thinking the other morning as I was getting ready to go out to a horse riding lesson. I was thinking about my horse trainer. Um, he's probably next to my husband, one of the people I respect most on the planet. And I was thinking about why is that? And it's really very simple. There's no guessing. There's no drama. There's no guessing. It's his yes is yes, his no is no. And he's got real solid principles and he sticks to them. And you know how you have like bosses or coworkers or people you work with or whatever, and you sometimes you wonder if you're upsetting somebody or and you walk on eggshells around them. I never have that feeling with him. He and his wife Holly, his name's Helga Buflod, and he and his wife run the Rockin' HB Ranch. They both have H starting names, like Helga, Holly. Then they cranked out kids and named them all with H's. It's really cute. Yeah. But they're great people, and they don't have a list of rules for the barn or anything, but there's stuff you should and shouldn't do. And when I break a rule, which you always do, you don't know what they are or whatever, he calls me out, but he does it in the kindest of ways. He's just, hey, just so you know, blah blah blah, we don't do this and we don't do that. And I was like, okay. And I know I don't feel any shame around that. I don't feel terrible about it. I don't feel like I've disappointed somebody. It's like, okay, now I know. And believe me, I've done some stupid things at the barn, and because you just don't know what the rules are. Um, but you do after you encounter stuff. And the neat thing is it's a really close-knit community. Like he's created these mutually respectful relationships with like all of the people that board horses there, the women that, and it's mostly women, that take lessons from him. I mean, it's just a really great environment. And the leadership from the 2 of them is based on respect. Like it just never, like I can ask him a question, he can say no, and we're good. Like no problem. And he can do the same thing with me. And what's cool about being with him as a trainer, I sit under him for lessons, is that he just his character makes me want to do my best
Mm.
and bring my best self to the table. And I don't always try super hard, but sometimes sometimes I don't try, but most of the time I want to do my absolute best just because he's good at what he does, but I just respect him. And it's really interesting as I was thinking about all of that, just how much influence that particular character trait can have on other people. Because I'm not the only one that feels like this.
Mm-hmm.
The entire community thinks this guy is a water walker, and they're not wrong. I mean, everything they do is
Mm.
just done well, and then people just they admire them, both of them. His wife is highly admired and regarded in the community. They're just giving solid Christian people that walk the talk,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Yeah, there's nothing phony there. So made me think about um, how respect plays into all the elements of being married, right?
Right.
And it's a really important topic. It's one of the few scriptures where the Bible says, "Hey, ladies, hey, married women,
Yeah.
here's this thing: respect your husband." So yeah, I want to dig into that a little deeper today.
Yeah, I think it's good. I know that we talk a lot about it. Obviously, you wrote a book about it. Hello. But sometimes we think respect is um, earned. And I feel like the example that you gave is one of those where it kind of came easy because the person had the character,
Mhm.
so it's
Oh yeah.
almost like they, yeah,
Mhm.
quote unquote earned it. But it's a different thing when maybe that character is underdeveloped, right? Which we often see in marriages. We all have places where we need to grow up a little bit, and really having respect in those places equally,
Mhm.
because of who we are in Christ, because of the fact that we are children of God. And, I think that can be a little bit more challenging. And so I'm hoping we can help some of our wives today in their wife talk, and maybe point out some of the things not to do, and
Yeah.
some of the things to do. But before we get into that, I want to just mention our website, greaterimpactwives.org, where you can go and grab a free PDF called 5 Tools for How to Stop Walking on Eggshells. We also have a free marriage assessment for you to download and maybe help you, understand where you are in your marriage. And if you have more questions, we have other tools on our website for you to check out. So, all right. So if you don't do this well, you can end up becoming unintentionally disrespectful in your relationship. Okay, so let's talk about respect and what that looks like and not. One of the ways we often miss it is when we are offering help. Um, God calls us help meets, right? And so in our mind, that can mean one thing, but maybe not translate in the same way to our men.
Mhm.
And an example of that is we might see, our husband, I don't know, fixing a meal, for instance, and we've learned to do it one way in our house, and he might have learned to do that a different way in his house.
Mhm.
And we think our way is better, of course, and we just kind of jump in there and maybe try to show him our way. And that cannot go over well.
Yeah. How do you spell controlling? Yeah,
Just a little bit. So,
just a little.
I'm wondering, like, what would be a better solution to that, or is there something we can do differently in that moment? Whether it's tell ourselves, "Hey, wait a minute, let him figure it out,"
Right.
or uh, you know, just do nothing. I don't know. What's a better way to handle that situation?
Yeah, I think it depends on the dude. If
Hmm.
your husband loves to cook like mine, I leave him alone because I'm 100% sure whatever he does is going to be better than what I would have done anyway. So that's easy.
Hmm.
But to your point, it is a typical wife domain space to be doing lots of the meals and everything. And when you're cooking for little kids, you know exactly what they like and how they like it and all the stuff. Well, what's also true is that you don't want your husband to be an extension of your relationship with your child. You want them to develop their own relationship with their kid. And so,
Hmm.
you let them, I try to stay out of the way. I try to, and my sons did Boy Scouts, and I had a lot of opportunities to just not want to know anything. Like just my husband went and did all the things, and they had adventures, and some of it was life-threatening stuff. And I mean, they sailed the Bahamas on an adventure with a troop, and it was lots of scary stuff happened. And I just didn't want to know. But it boils down to who's the relationship with. And when you first have a baby, the husband's like, "What do you do with this kid? What do you do with this baby? It doesn't do anything." And most husbands don't really connect with infants until they're, 9 months, 18 months old, where they start actually doing stuff, talking, walking, playing, that kind of stuff. That's easier for them.
Hmm.
But if they're asking questions, you offer up the information. And if you can do stuff together, then you do, like the baby classes and those kinds of things. And then you trust your husband to figure it out. Uh,
Hmm.
Jim's mom told me when I went back to work, if your child is alive when you get home, that's good enough. And she was right. She said, if you don't do this, he's not going to do anything the way that you did.
Yeah.
And you just need to have no expectations. If your child is alive, that's good enough. And the reason for that is if you get in the middle of this, Nina, you will have teenage boys, teenage children that do not know their father. And I knew she was probably speaking from some experience with some of her other kids. It was just, yeah. So I took her advice and I bit my lip and I did not say a single word when I came back. I forgot something and it was chaos and things were not going the way I would have done them, but I just turned around and left, got my thing and turned around and left. And then I got home afterwards and was told, yeah, it went great. And, I do these things differently, which are all things I would have criticized for. So I don't think I'm really necessary to the equation. I think experience will teach them very, very quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like you had to adjust your expectation a little bit to sort of allow that thing to go
Yes.
well. So
Yeah.
there's a little bit of work that had to happen internally there.
Well, it was mostly just biting my tongue and
Yeah.
choosing to actively take her advice. What I recognize now is that, at the time I had postpartum depression and it was a really difficult parenting. My first was really awful. It was so hard. And I was neurotic about all of the little things being done a certain way. And I had to let go of that. And I look back on that now and I go, that was emotional maturity. Like I let go of a lot of stuff because of what she said. And I'm glad that I did. It made me more flexible as a human. And then on top of that, my kids know their dad. They do stuff together without me. It's great. They take trips together. I love that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So the next thing is one thing we do as women when we are talking, like you and I, we get excited, we talk over each other, we
Oh, yeah.
interrupt.
Just like that.
Just like that, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's no big deal. There's
Right,
no
right.
disrespect, no offense. It's like, the more the merrier. But that's not exactly how it works with men.
No.
Can you talk a little bit about why maybe interrupting or correcting them if they mispronounce the word or something
Mhm.
is a disrespectful thing?
Yeah. So men, and this is based on research done by Shanti Feldhahn in the Male Factor. Um, she she's got some good research out there, but this in particular is really interesting. Interrupting is viewed as a control attempt, a takeover. It's an aggressive move in business, So men are naturally respectful with each other, except when they're not. And they have a reason for that, which is I find really interesting. And women don't communicate like that, to your point, at all. We participate in communication very much so, and nobody thinks anything of it. But when we're with men, whether it's teenage boys or adult men, it is wise to hold our tongue. I do a lot of coaching with men over the phone. Most of my clients are women, but when I coach men, I use my mute button like all the time. So because I do go, oh yeah, and I don't
Mhm.
want to do anything that could foster any kind of defensiveness in him whatsoever. And so we just all need to be aware of the difference. And yes, you can, I mean, it's just smart. If you're in, like my son went to Japan with his wife a couple months ago and they learned some Japanese. Like you've got to learn the language of your audience.
That's good. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Learn the language of your audience. Oh my goodness. That's a book. Um, all right. So the next thing is another way we try to help our men is by rescuing them. Like if we, for instance, are great at a thing and we say they're not so great at a thing, and we can kind of see down the road a little bit the disaster coming, we jump in sometimes and
mhm.
we say no to that and kind of take over, basically, more control. So that doesn't go over well either. I have to say, I think it's especially hard when you're in a marriage and the decision might affect you, for instance,
Mhm.
or your kids.
Mhm.
And so I feel like the effort and the awareness has to be like really strong and the expectation adjusted
Mhm.
to allow what might be a disaster
Mhm.
or a learning opportunity, growth opportunity, whatever you want to call it, that might come with some consequences for everybody. Can you help our ladies with how to handle that a little bit better?
Yeah, and there's 28 layers to this.
Yeah.
Um, and to be able to, first of all, to have any kind of influence in a situation where you can say to your husband, "Hey, I know you said you were gonna fix the leak in the bathroom this weekend, and here it is Sunday night, and I was just wondering what your plan was with that." To be able to be in a space where he can hear that from you and then go, "Oh, you know what? I totally forgot about it." And then say, "Well, what do you want to do? Because I'm worried that that is going to become a problem this week, with everybody taking showers and stuff."
Mm.
To have that kind of conversation and be able to have influence without causing defensiveness, you have to have a certain amount of trust in the relationship in the first place. And what we tend to do instead is like, how come you didn't fix the leak in the bathroom? Like that's been going on. Like you told me you were gonna, we use you language. You said you were gonna do this thing, which anytime you start a conversation with you said you were going to, why didn't you? I mean, that's assault verbally. It's not like I don't really believe that that's violence, but if you want to cause defensiveness in your husband, that's the fastest way to do that is just really come out with challenge. Why is a challenge word? You never want to use that. And then you language makes people defensive because it's an accusation. You said you were going to, even though if it's a statement of fact, what is better is to say, it's my understanding we are going to work on this. Um, how can I help? That's really it. And then maybe give a reason why you're concerned about it. Um, or ask questions versus trying to take over and control. When we do that, we communicate it. I know so many men that they just suddenly feel like the 7-year-old and their mom redoes the thing they just did that they were so proud of, and then they just discover it's not good enough.
Yeah.
And so they don't try. So we create a lot of opportunity. We create an environment. And we're not responsible for the choices they're making. But boy, is it hard to have any kind of, dopamine motivation when you get the life sucked out of you by your wife's criticism on a regular basis. Like, stop that. Be on
Mm.
his side, be on his team, be encouraging. Assume he's got a good reason for doing or not doing what he's doing and be patient. You're not God. There may be a reason why, something hasn't happened at the rate you wanted it to. Maybe somebody was going to get hurt and that's being prevented and you'll never know. But can you trust God with the timing of this or whatever? You know, we got to let go a little more and be more respectful in the way that we interact.
Yeah. So that means dealing with what's underneath that thing that you're
Yeah.
afraid of, I mean, in order to really understand them or consider them the way you're saying, I feel like we got to get past ourselves first. So,
Yes.
so it's like the questions, why am I afraid of this? Okay, so
Mhm.
if this happens, then what? Like those
Exactly.
questions we have to explore in order to even show up with that healthier
Mhm.
mindset.
Yep.
So,
Fair.
all right. And so let's move on to the things we can start doing to help our respect. Negotiate the relationship is one of the things you recommended. So what do you mean negotiate the
Oh,
relationship?
yeah. So women are gonna hate this. Like I'm already anticipating hate mail, but and you don't have to do this with every guy or every relationship, but if you are finding that you're not getting his attention, if he's checked out of the relationship, there's a reason for that. And so asking him starting a conversation with, hey, I was just wondering if you were to rate 1 to 10 where you're at, how you're feeling in our relationship right now, what number would you give yourself? Now, you're not asking him for an emotion, you're asking him for a number. And 10 would be, it's amazing. One would be, where do I get off the planet? You know, and you're going to get a number from him. And he might even complain for a minute. Well, you never this and you always that, just ignore all of that. Well, kind of like there might be some truth in there, but don't take any of it personally, is what I mean.
Mm.
And then ask the question, what would it take to move that from the 6 that you gave to a 7? Like, what would 1 point movement look like for you? Like, what would need to happen? Oh, well, I'd need you to stop complaining about your mother-in-law, like she's my mom. I'm sick of hearing you, whatever, like, or whatever it is, right? Or maybe he wants more sex or whatever it is. But you'll get some really good information. You don't want to dig into, well, why do you feel terrible?
Yeah.
That's history. That is
Right.
never useful. Don't dig into the past. I know a lot of psychologists and therapists and counselors are like, oh, but that's how we get paid. Like we dig into the past. And it's like, that's useful in some situations, especially if you're dealing with mental illness and trauma recovery, absolutely. But when it comes to moving a relationship forward, that kind of conversation is going to start conflict. So instead of having that conversation, you want to know, what do we do moving forward? That's a
Mhm.
coaching conversation. What's one thing I could do this week that would move that up? Well, I haven't even seen you. You've been working every night this week, and then I was gone all last weekend. Like maybe we should, go do something fun. Well, okay. What do you want to do? And that's then the conversation you're having, right? So that's part A. Part B, part B is is something women are going to hate. Um, I'm not going to go into all of the depth, and there is probably a good 20 minutes of dissertation on the way that hormones work, and men bond differently than women do. But the reason you're not feeling connected to him is because you have an oxytocin deficit. So
Hmm.
that bonding hormone in you is not there. And it's not there because he's probably not listening, not hearing you, you're not feeling connected relationally. And so when he wants sex, you're not interested and you're like, ah. So part of this whole hormone cocktail that we have is that men bond through vasopressin, women bond through oxytocin. And so we need to negotiate, what do you actually want? So if your biggest issue in your relationship is, hey, I need to not have as much criticism and I need to have positive words and I want, you got to quantify that. You got to get real specific about what you want. But you don't hand him a list of everything. You start small with one thing. So let's say you just want to change one thing in the bedroom and you want 10 minutes of cuddling in the morning when you wake up, and you want him to check in with you in the middle of the day. And if he does these things, you're a crock pot, he's a light switch. So that you can let him know when you come home in the evening, if you ask me about my day, then I'm going to be really into you that night. And so you spell it out for him, even to the point of, like, I don't want to do this on the air here, but there's real specific things that you need to say to, to facilitate some forward movement in your relationship. And part of the way that you do that is, I know that you have things that you want from me. What would be fair? What kind of exchange would be fair in this
Mhm.
situation?
Mhm.
When men love the language of fairness. So, and that's a respectful thing to be thinking about. So when you ask him, what do you think would be fair? I'm asking you for this. What do you think would be fair for you? And that's a negotiation. And that feels very transactional. Absolutely. But how do you think he's going to learn that? Like, you're complaining about it doesn't work. Stop it. Negotiate.
Oof.
I know. Ooh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I could see some eyebrows raising around that.
Mhm.
But I think the point you're making is valid because you're speaking his language.
Exactly. Yes.
I mean, if it takes a few transactions to create a pattern that you like,
Hmm.
then why not? So,
Exactly. Yeah.
all right. So if you want more details and specifics around that, maybe give us a shout. We can give you a coaching call around how to maybe do that well. We're not going to say it on the air, but we can
Yeah.
certainly do it in a coaching call.
Yeah.
So,
Amen.
all right. And then the last thing is you mentioned call him up.
Yeah.
Tell
So
us what that means.
this is huge. And this is a key factor in respect in any relationship. People will behave to the lowest that they're allowed. They won't start there,
Mm.
but they're going to put the least amount of effort into anything. And what that means is that if you don't do the right thing and nobody says anything to you, well, you're probably going to do that same not right thing again because nobody's saying anything to you. And I'm not suggesting that you turn into his mother and discipline him or be angry. It's like, but you can say, "Hey, I was paying some bills and I noticed there was a tab on the computer that had some, well, stuff that I thought we had an agreement we weren't going to bring into our marriage on it." And you just state the facts. That's it. But you bring it up and you let the air be thick. You don't fill the silence with words and you let him own it. And then you say, okay, so what's the plan around that? Is that a big thing or a little thing? And you'll get information. And then you can say, okay, well, I don't really want to talk about that right now, but I would like to know what we're going to do around that moving forward, because it sounds like this, or maybe it isn't, right? But you make it a statement that is, let's talk about this and let's talk about it later. And then you do. If somebody doesn't put their dish in the dishwasher, it's that simple. Hey, babe, do you mind putting your cup in the dishwasher? Now, you could be standing right there and do that for him.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't want to start that.
Right.
You know, I always had the rule, everybody's got different roles in their marriages. I'm a genius when it comes to laundry. Like, man, oh man, I'm good at laundry. That's not really the biggest thing to be proud of, but your favorite shirt will never get ruined at my house. Just saying. So, but if it doesn't make it into the laundry bin, it's not going to get washed. That's just facts. So, and then when somebody comes to you, and this works with teenagers too, where's my shirt? I don't know, honey. I haven't seen it. Well, how come you didn't pick it up? It was right there next to the basket. No, the rule is it's in the basket or it don't get washed.
Mhm.
You know, so then I would say that to a child, but to my husband, be like, oh, it didn't make it in. Okay, well, next time, and let him pick it up and put it in there. That's it. And that ties into your rescuing thing. But the point of this is that if you don't call people to a higher level of being, if you don't call out the thing that they're doing that's not agreed upon or is not useful, they do not respect you. That's facts.
Mhm.
Now, you
Mhm.
don't want to nitpick and be horrible to be around. You also have to balance that with tons of strength-based compliments, tons of, hey, this is what's going well, and I really love being married to you, and boy, way to go with your job this week and that presentation. I heard you rocked it. Whatever it is, you've got to have tons of that. Dale Carnegie calls it being hearty in your approbation and lavish in your praise. And yes, absolutely. And then tell the truth, because you've earned the right, you've girded up the relationship, and you've earned the right to create mutual respect there. That's it.
Amen. All right. Well, there you have it. We have 5 things to stop doing and start doing to help your wife language get more respectful. So we hope this was helpful for you today. You can learn more if you just hop on over to our website, as I said earlier. We have tons of resources. We have people willing to help you. We have an awesome course online on Facebook. It's free if you want to join and just learn more about how to do this well. And then also just check out more of our episodes. We think you'll enjoy those as well. So thanks for joining today. We'll see you next time.